everyone, and welcome to the Undisputed Heavyweight Champion of the World show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning fan show. Happy Thursday, and it is a beautiful Thursday because this is pre-recorded. What you are hearing is not live because by the time this airs, I will be in a comfy theater getting ready for Infinity Wars, which we'll probably talk about on tonight's episode, but you're still due a awesome episode of Football and Nonsense, and we have just that for you. I have two very special guests this evening. It's going to be a bit more on the wrestling side of things. Might talk some football, might talk some other stuff, but Shayne Merriman's coming up. You know him from Wrestlaholic. Always happy to have him on to talk some wrestling and WWE. And then making his debut on the show, an interview I never ever thought would happen in a million years, but it is only 20 since his epic match against The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell, and that's why he's coming to Spokane May 2nd. Mick Foley will be on the show later tonight. Again, all pre-recorded, but please do enjoy that. It was a great conversation, and he actually agreed with me on a few things, so how about that? And then we've got him in Spokane Comedy Club, May 2nd. He's doing a tour, 20 Years of Hell. They're doing the match, doing a Q&A, so it's not comedy, per se, but there might be some funny stories with it. So without further ado, let's get down to it. No need for headlines. You know that the draft is going on today, but all anybody cares about really, or what you should care about right now, is Avengers Infinity War. So let's go ahead and welcome Shayne. Shayne, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I look forward to the Infinity War. I'm sad, though, that this has been hyped as like, you know, where will you be when it all ends? And I don't want to see the saga end, and I know that Disney and Marvel have, like, plans for the future, but, man, this is like growing up with something. This is like growing up with, you know, Toy Story, and then you have the three of them, and then it comes to an end, and you're like, what do I do with my life now? So are you going to see Infinity War? Like, are you psyched for it?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm not probably as excited for it as comic book fans. I've never been that big of a comic book fan, but I'm definitely excited for it. I'm probably going to wait until it comes out on Redbox to watch it, though. I'm not a big movie theater guy.
Oh, man, that's too bad. That's where you get the experience, you know, the big screen. Yeah. But you just got to buy one of those big TVs or a projector, and then you can makeshift it.
Yeah, I'll buy me a 70-inch and a projector, 70-inch screen and a projector, and put it up on my wall.
There you go, man. That's the way to do it. You can have all the snacks you want. They don't have to check your bag at security and be like, what are you doing? What are you frisking me for? It's a big coat. It's right. July. Well, yeah. I get cold.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked since just before Mania, and there is a T-shirt for you that I have to send out probably next week because I'm going to pick up a batch of them this weekend. And then we had the Supstar Shakeup, which I haven't really had a chance to talk a lot about on the show. For episode 300, that was just before the Shakeup. James, the sports guy, and I were talking about our expectations, what we wanted to see happen, what we thought we would see happen, and how to basically save the WWE, because for the last year, NXT has kicked its ass up and down.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the live events, the storytelling, and then the pay-per-views. My goodness. So the Supstar Shakeup has happened. Now, of course, since we're talking Wednesday evening, this is being put up Thursday, I have not had a chance to watch SmackDown, though I do know a majority of what happens, which I guess the only real big thing was that Shinsuke had new entrance music. But Supstar Shakeup, take it away, Shayne. What do you think? Grades, pros and cons, missed opportunities?
Well, as far as missed opportunities go, I think WWE missed a big opportunity in moving Finn Balor to SmackDown. I think things have kind of gotten stale for Balor on Raw, and plus if they moved Gallows and Anderson, and if they would have moved Balor over, they could have had a full Bullet Club reunion on SmackDown. Not a full one, but as far as everybody that's in WWE, a full Bullet Club reunion. But even without Balor, SmackDown Live won the Supstar Shakeup this year. I mean, Big Cass had a great promo at the opening of SmackDown Live Tuesday night that I said on Twitter it looked like him tearing his ACL released his personality. I didn't even know that was possible. But prior to him getting hurt, he had no personality. He just was a big guy that came out and kicked people in the face. And if that promo Tuesday night was anything to go off of, the new big cast post-injury might be the one that helps his career take off. So that's exciting. Samoa Joe got moved to SmackDown Live, which was a huge shock. I didn't expect him to make the jump, but hopefully we get to see him go up against AJ or Shinsuke, whoever wins this feud coming out for the WWE title. I think he deserves a World Heavyweight Championship run. The Bar moved to SmackDown Live. SmackDown Live got Andrade Cien Almas and Sanity. I mean, as far as kayfabe goes, Paige looks like one of the best SmackDown Live GMs we've ever seen in WWE just off of the last 2 weeks because of all the talent that she brought onto the show.
Yeah, but is that really her bringing talent, or is that just the way that creative said this is how we need to do this? And I'll be honest, I was surprised at all the talent that SmackDown got, because usually when SmackDown starts to look like the hot brand, Raw and Vince are just like, well, we got to snuff that out, don't we?
Yeah, that's what happened at last year's Superstar Shakeup. Raw just took all the big stars off of SmackDown, but yeah, you're right. No, it is just creative moving people around, but that's why I said, like, in kayfabe terms, if you want to believe that everything that happens in wrestling is 100% real, then Paige looks like the best GM we've seen in a long, long time. All respect to Daniel Bryan and how good he was, but just as far as talent that she's brought onto the show, she would look like the favorite right now if I had to pick favorite SmackDown GMs in the last decade.
Oh, yeah, she looks great. I think it's a good role for her. They do always need to have that face and heel GMs. I mean, it was so great when we had Eric Bischoff as the GM of Raw. Now, I still don't think GM is the right role for Kurt Angle. I really don't. I think he'd be a great manager, especially if he decided to mentor either Jason Jordan or Chad Gable or both. I think that would be an excellent role for him, because too much spotlight, too much mic work, for whatever reason, is just not his forte. He's really been struggling with his promos and getting out complete sentences the first time. I would love to see Paul Heyman be the Raw GM, but I know that when Brock leaves, that's probably not what he will do after that. But man, what a perfect fit that would be. So, you look at the rosters. I think you're right about Big Cass. I think the injury and losing about 205 pounds over that break has really done wonders for his career. yeah,
he does look leaner now.
Yeah, and. But SmackDown, man, the brand, and you're right. The club as a whole, I think, should have moved over to SmackDown. I thought they would have moved Daniel Bryan to Raw, kept Miz there, and then sent Balor and Anderson and Gallows over to SmackDown, just because you would think that Bryan is the kind of attraction that you want on what you consider to be your best brand, your best show, but maybe he wants to stay on SmackDown. Maybe it was more of his say than anything. But him and The Miz, they're teasing that so much, and I can't wait to see it play out. But in all honesty, if your name isn't Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar, you're not going to be in that title picture on Raw anytime soon. So right now they flooded SmackDown with title contenders, and I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, because that was one thing, prior to the draft, or shakeup, whatever you want to call it, that SmackDown just didn't have any. I mean, SmackDown had AJ Styles, Shinsuke, Owens, and Zayn, and that was the only 4 people that had a legitimate shot at the WWE Championship on SmackDown. But Jeff Hardy made the jump. I know he's U.S. champion right now, but once he drops that, he could jump into the WWE title picture and in a heartbeat. No one would blink an eye at it. I already said Samoa Joe. The Miz is there. He deserves a title shot. Daniel Bryan's on there. There's so many more people now on SmackDown. Shelton Benjamin, I think he could get a World Heavyweight title shot. People wouldn't complain too much. There's just so many more guys now on SmackDown Live than there were right before WrestleMania. And the storylines seem to be, unending now that they could go with in any direction.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that all of SmackDown's main title talent is what would be competing heavily for the Intercontinental on Raw, which in all it's just messed up, man. It really is. Like, they need to just they need to fix Raw, but I don't know how, because they do the most ridiculous things with Braun Strowman, and he's the guy that you wanted Roman Reigns to be, but Roman Reigns never became that. And I don't know how many years in a row you have to give of Roman being in the spotlight before you finally give up on that project. But it didn't take Cena this long to get where he was, and in fact, he did it against the grain. So maybe, hand-holding isn't the best approach to trying to move talent into what you think the fans want. We've got the greatest Royal Rumble ever coming up, and I've got some mixed feelings about it. I personally don't really want to watch it because there's no women talent competing, and it's like you've been on this high horse about pushing all your female talent. They've been an attraction in their own. They've been headlining, main eventing, doing all these things for the first time ever. And now you're going to a country that won't allow that, and it's for business. Now, my wife made a great point last night. She's just like, well, before this, they wouldn't even let WWE in there, so I guess baby steps. And I was just like, it's 2018. Like, we're beyond baby steps. We're to the point where it's just like, don't be an asshole country, Like, you want the product there. You need to. It's got to be all or nothing, not this a la carte thing that they've got. So what do you think about this whole Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, greatest Royal Rumble thing?
I'm indifferent about it. I mean, I'm gonna watch the event, just because of the matches that they have on there. I think they're gonna be great matches. The probably 2.5 hour 50-man Royal Rumble I could live without, but I'm sure. I mean, there's gonna have to be a couple of NXT call-ups and probably a couple of huge returns for that 50-man Royal Rumble. But yeah, as far as, I don't know, there had to have been somewhere better they could have chosen, like the UK or Japan or somewhere to put that Royal Rumble, to put this event just so the women could be a part of it. But at the same time, I like it more because a lot of the undercard male superstars that they have, like Rusev, like there's a women's match on this card. They probably wouldn't need that Undertaker-Rusev match that Rusev's going to get to showcase himself in. So it's a win some, lose some situation, and I understand that the women need their fair chance, but I also understand that country is not the most receptive when it comes to stuff like that. So I'm just happy, like your wife said, I'm just happy that they're breaking into the area, and maybe, a decade from now, maybe we could have an all-woman show in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that seems like such a long time from now. And to put things in perspective, we did just have, the 96th Academy Awards, which I don't care to watch anymore because I think there's too much politics in it. But I do know some of the winners were the first, like them, to win that category in its 96-year history. And I mean, that speaks volumes for where we're at in the world as a whole. So I guess I really can't knock Saudi Arabia too much for their outlook on things, but man, it's tough to really know how hard half your roster has been working and how well they've been received everywhere else, and to do this because look, I'll give it to the people that are looking at it from a perspective of, it just takes this one foot in the door and everything else changes. But my problem with it is that's not what the intent was going into this thing. The intent was to make a lot of money in a market that you're trying to tap into. If Vince said, we're going to try to break down barriers and open doors to new opportunities in different countries, I applaud him and my hat is off to him. But that is not what this event was about.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a money grab for WWE, but at the same time, if they can kill two birds with one stone, if they can get a money grab and get their foot in the door over there, and maybe if they do good enough business, if next year, if they were to say, or 2 years from now, if they were to say, look, if you want us to come back, you have to let us put one of our women's titles on the card, so if they can kill two birds with one, I would much rather suffer through a little bit of bias or sexism than just not get any headway at all.
And I think that's a failure on their PR's job as far as putting things in the right spotlight, because I knew about how much money they were spending on to make this event happen, and how much Saudi Arabia wanted, and what their sort of demands were to even make this a thing, and how much Saudi Arabia was spending to make this event happen, that I didn't know until just recently that there were no women on the card because that's their laws in that country. Like, I guess I should have noticed when I was, when they're showing the card, but I guess if there's no comparison like that card to WrestleMania, you're not going to notice what's not there because they're not bringing it up. So PR, their job to spin things and make it look better than it actually is, should have gotten ahead of how much money Saudi Arabia was spending to make this thing happen, and instead focused on we're looking at this as an opportunity to expand our reach and go to a country that hasn't normally had this, and to try to get our foot in the door to break down some barriers and help, have everything be, rainbows and butterflies when it comes to, women attending and of course eventually competing. Like, if you come out with that statement, you look like a hero without a doubt, but that statement didn't come out,
Yeah, and I don't know if with a country like Saudi Arabia, you have to be careful the way you say things, because who knows, maybe if they would have came out and said something like that, Saudi Arabia might have off the whole event. And, I don't know how WWE would have handled that. They might have just been like, okay, call off the event. We're just going to hold it in Chicago instead, or, we'll hold it in London instead, something like that. But, yeah, I definitely agree that they could have made some kind of statement, and maybe after the event's over, they may make a statement like that. But I think for the time being, they just needed to play and make sure the event happened to maybe just gain a little bit of traction in the area.
I just miss the balls on Vince McMahon, because there was a point in time where it was like he was the businessman that you didn't mess with. Like, it was his way or no way when it came to doing business, because I'll never forget that Monday Night Raw that was scheduled to be in Denver, Colorado, and their team, the Nuggets, made it to the postseason in the NBA. And so they told Vince, we can't have it here because we're hosting a playoff game. So WWE is on the scramble, and LA, the Staples Center, is just like, hey, why don't you come here? And so they went there, and Vince goes on ESPN and has a Lakers jersey for the owner of the Denver Nuggets, Stan Kroenke. And he's just like, all he would have had to tell me is that we didn't think going into this season that we were going to make the postseason, and so we booked you, and so now we're going to have to figure out something else, because apparently that's not the conversation that they had. It was just like, no, our team made it to the playoffs, we can't honor our agreement. And you don't say those things to Vince McMahon. So I miss that Vince McMahon that will go on a national broadcast and hold up a jersey of LA Lakers, where he's now going to have his Monday Night Raw as a gift for the owner of the franchise that just told you that they couldn't house your event. Like, that's the Vince I miss.
Yeah, and then that Raw that they had where they moved it to LA, the main event was a 5-on-5 LA Lakers versus Denver Nuggets. Do you remember that?
I
the
do.
Hills wore Denver Nuggets jerseys, and the Faces wore Lakers jerseys, and that was the match, the main event. That was actually the last match that Mr. Kennedy had in WWE. He flipped Randy Orton over, and Orton landed on his wrist, and Orton went back and complained, and Anderson was fired later that week.
Wow. Yeah, I miss Mr. Kennedy. He was good. I wish he'd come back, but I haven't heard anything about him. We get Angle, Lashley, and so many others from the Impact, and not Mr. Kennedy, which he would have been great, man. He had it all set up, and then it got...
Yeah.
Oh, so Superstar Shakeup. I feel like we're going to see a lot of things sort of iron out just where they lie on each brand after this event, and they're already starting to promote Backlash. But I mean, really, I think the biggest Superstar Shakeup happened before the actual shakeup, when Daniel Bryan announced that he was cleared and he was coming back, which my big question is like, for how long? Like, how many more concussions can he endure before he really has to hang it up? Like, I'm concerned for the guy because I like the guy, but
Right.
You plug him in with literally any other top superstar on either brand, and it's going to be probably a 5-star match. So he's this giant addition to SmackDown's active roster. Like, what if you're SmackDown? If you're creative, like, where do you go from here with heel Nakamura, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, or Samoa Joe, and The Miz? Like, how do you do this?
Well, that's the good thing about it is half of those guys. Well, you named off 4 guys, and 3 out of those 4 guys are all heels. And Daniel Bryan is the penultimate babyface. And we know AJ Styles can switch over to a heel and play an amazing heel. So, you know, and all those matches are dream matches. Bryan versus Styles for the WWE Championship. Bryan Nakamura for the WWE Championship. We're already going to get to see Bryan go head-to-head at probably Backlash and SummerSlam. Bryan versus Samoa Joe, you know. A couple of these are matches that we've seen before. You know, Bryan and Styles wrestled in Ring of Honor. Bryan and Joe wrestled in Ring of Honor. And, you know, but their styles and the way they wrestle have changed so much since the 3 of them were in Ring of Honor. Getting to see them wrestle now, especially on WWE's grandest stage, will be a treat just in and of itself. But Bryan could also be used to help push so much younger talent, you know. Like a Big Cass, which it looks like I think that's the feud we're going to get. I think they either said Backlash or the Greatest Royal Rumble. We're going to see those 2 guys go. I think it was Backlash, go head-to-head. So, you know, they're using Bryan well, and happy to see him back. But you're right, every time on his head or gets kicked in the head or something, I cringe a little bit because I'm worried how many more kicks to the head he has before he's done permanent damage, and he's got a wife and a kid now that he has to worry about. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm happy to see him back, but at the same time, let's make it through a year and a half and see where we're at then, see if he's still strong or if he's back to retired.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to put him in ladder matches right away, you know, but, man, would he be great in one of those, a TLC match again, like the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 30. So
yeah,
we'll see how the stars align for SmackDown. I'm very happy with the shakeup. I wonder what Raw's next move is, just because I feel like we get the shakeup, but then it's like not all the dust has settled just yet, because there's still a few things that have to be played out. Obviously, the whole Jinder and Jeff Hardy thing for the U.S. title has to play out. But we'll see. SmackDown is stacked. You wish that there were almost more titles to go around because all those guys really deserve one. But Balor is the big question mark, as well as Braun Strowman on the Raw roster, just because, you know, I mean, with them, and then Rollins is the title holder for the IC title. It's like, so you have, you know, 2 guys competing with and against each other, and 1 guy that you can't figure out what to do with. So I think the Greatest Royal Rumble and Backlash will be big indicators to what we can expect from the Raw brand, because that's the one that's got the big question mark on it. Let's go ahead and switch gears here. The draft is happening right now. In fact, the pick is in, and oh my God, I didn't think they were going to pick that guy. What do you think of the draft?
I'm excited. I know I'm a WWE guy at heart, but the NFL draft, I think I get more excited for it than I do the Super Bowl, just because I like to watch teams try and get better. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I've done my predict the pick on NFL.com. I do it every year. I usually do horrible at it, but I do it every year just for the fun of it. And I think last year I got like 3 picks right. So, I mean, that's how bad I am at it. But it's still fun to just sit there and figure things out.
Yeah, that's fair. So, any particular thing that stands out to you about this year's draft that makes you more excited or less excited than the last? I mean, obviously, if you think the draft is better than the Super Bowl, there's got to be something particular that you enjoy about it.
I just like the not knowing where someone's going until their name gets called. But yeah, this draft, I think this is the first draft I've ever watched and been interested in that's had this many QBs that could go in the first round. I mean, there are 6 QBs that could get drafted in the first round, and I think that's the most quarterbacks I've ever heard of potentially going in the first round in any NFL draft. I mean, there's 4 at the top of everybody's big board, and that's, of course, Darnold, Allen, Mayfield, and Rosen. But yeah, I think this might be the best QB class since Eli, Rivers, and Roethlisberger. We'll have to see, but I think when the dust settles, they may look back at the 2018 QB draft classes as one of the best to ever come into the NFL.
That's a very bold prediction there, but a popular one nonetheless. And your team, the Chiefs, right?
Yes, sir.
You've got your quarterback in Mahomes. Who are you hoping they get as far as their picks go?
Well, we don't have a first-round pick. We traded ours away to trade up to get Mahomes. But I'm hoping second round there's a decent wide receiver on the board because I think that's a need. I know we have Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, but Watkins hasn't proven himself to be a clutch wide receiver. We've seen him drop a few big-time passes in big-time games. So we'll have to see. Maybe he'll flourish under Andy Reid, but I think just having a young team to build up with Patrick Mahomes is the best thing the Chiefs can do right now, and drafting a young wide receiver late in the second round will probably be their best bet.
All righty. Well, then the draft happens, or it's happening, and then we get to OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and then before you know it, it's preseason. What are your expectations for your Chiefs this year? How'd you like the schedule that came out?
It looks like a we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. We'll have to see what the Broncos do at 5. If they take Allen or Mayfield, I might feel differently about it. But as of right now, I think the Chiefs are probably still going to win the AFC West. I think Mahomes might have a little bit of a learning curve, but I think we'll probably still close out the season at 9-7 or 10-6.
9-7 or 10-6. So you think that all the other teams in the AFC West are going to be that much worse?
Well, I mean, like I said, we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the draft. But the Raiders just look so dysfunctional right now. They lost Michael Crabtree. He was a big asset to them on offense. The Broncos need a QB, and like I said, we'll just have to wait and see if they take Mayfield or Allen at 5. If they take Baker Mayfield, I could see them winning the AFC West. And then the Chargers are talking about drafting a QB. And if they do that, I think Phillip Rivers is either going to ask to be traded or retire. And so we'll have to see what happens with them. So we'll have to see how the cards fall. But as of right now, I think the Chiefs are probably the most talented team offensively and defensively in the AFC West.
All right. Well, anything else you want to add before we wrap this thing up on this Thursday edition?
Only thing I'm going to say is not really a bold prediction, but I think Roman Reigns is walking out Universal Champion at Greatest Royal Rumble Friday.
And I never thought I would say this, but I hope that that's what happens.
Well, that was the reason they changed the plans at WrestleMania, because the crowd didn't like Roman, and he's a huge fan favorite in Saudi Arabia. That's probably where they'll crown him. I'm just guessing. I don't know anything for sure, but I'm just guessing.
Alrighty, well, this is Shayne Merriman of Wrestlaholic, which is where you can find all your latest wrestling happenings, and they've got coverage all over the world. When's the podcast coming back, ETA?
We are shooting for the end of this month, so I think this weekend, I think this Saturday will be our first episode back.
Perfect. All right. Well, Shayne, I thank you for taking the time. You enjoy the rest of your week and weekend, and then I'm sure that we'll talk, probably post-draft at some point and closer to preseason, and then probably SummerSlam and, all those fun things. We'll talk. We'll talk soon.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We'll keep in touch.
All right. Well, you take care of yourself. Have a good rest of your night.
Yep. You too. Have fun.
All right. That was Shayne Merriman, and now we are going to go to commercial break. And when we come back, the moment you've all been waiting for on this very special edition of the Fan Show, Mick Foley is on deck. I repeat, Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mick Foley is up after this.
This is The Sheet.
Gets me all revved up. My face is now red. My ears are just freaking boiling. He's so raw. He's so raw that Sky hates him.
Yeah, he had 51 touchdowns, 4,900 total yards.
I know y'all like that, but I got to run. And only in Alabama that could happen, I have to say.
They're so good, man. They would win the Big Ten if they were in the Big Ten.
You could be doing something vision-based in front of you and reach down and grab a handful of insane goodness.
Give it to him. Kudos. I'm clapping like a golfer. Very good, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Wow. You guys agree on something again? I'm very impressed. You ever had a bad week? You know, just you walk outside, step in a puddle, like right when you walk outside. I mean, how's there a puddle right outside your house? Are you stand on the curb and somebody drives by and splashes water up on you? Or it's just raining on you, not anyone else?
I will tell you, before you go any further, I cannot hear Chad when he speaks.
Good. Here, listen to the sheet, man. I don't really know what we're doing.
Every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on WBLZ Sports.
Whether it be your industrial, commercial, or residential needs, Gen Service is the electrical contractor for you. The Gen Service team has the expertise, commitment, and educational years to help you solve all your electrical concerns. They have you in their best interest with helpful suggestions to accommodate your every want. Give them a call, no matter the size of the job, at 740-438-7173. Mention WBLZ Sports, and you'll get a discount. That's Gen Service, 740-438-7173.
This is Nick Ciccarelli, the mad scientist of sports. Join me and Dr. D, Derek Jones, live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. The big intellect, the experiments on the chalkboard, and the guest subjects will be rolling in. Mad Scientist Sports Lab, only on WBLZ Sports, where we got balls.
Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. He has over 30 years of painting experience. He's interior, exterior, commercial, or residential. Doug Peffer covers it all. Is your house looking ugh? We'll call on Doug. Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361. Mention WBLZ Sports and get a special We've Got Balls discount. That's Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing. 404-966-3361.
Check out Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL legends live on. We bring you 5 NFL legends every week, sharing their stories and insights, plus our spotlight on the positive. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities. Now on WBLZ Sports Talk Radio and WBLZSports.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, a man who needs no introduction but got plenty during his WWE career. It is the one and only Mick Foley. Mick, welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You were about to call me Milk, weren't you?
I was on accident. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to coming to Spokane.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Of course, I'm Richard with the F.A.N show, and I love wrestling, and I'm excited to see you. When you come to Spokane, though, it's not wrestling related. It is comedy. How's the comedy life?
No. Let me nip that in the bud. It is a wrestling show. It's specific to the 20th anniversary of Hell in a Cell. Like, I'm not doing punchlines. I mean, the stories can be funny. But I'm, kind of like bringing to life that famous night, June 28th, 1998, on the stage. And so there's some intensity and there's, some emotion and there's a lot of laughs, but it's not, let me repeat that, not a comedy show.
I see. Okay. Well, the venue choice threw me off a little bit. I was like,
the nice thing when you do a comedy club is it's ready for action. It's it's fanned out. It's exactly what you want. Everyone's got a great view, low ceiling. People are in the right place. They've got their own security. And so you just come in and people find out in a hurry, that they're always surprised that it's better than they think it's going to be. They're taking a chance and the ticket sales have been really good in Spokane. So people are just like kind of blindly, hoping that I will come through, and then they're always pleasantly surprised.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that we will be. We had Jake the Snake Roberts in, and that was an actual like comedy-esque show. So that's, I think, the crossover wouldn't be, the first ever if we did a wrestler to comedian style of show. But I think the Hell in a Cell anniversary will be a great storytelling event, no doubt.
Well, I saw Bruce Springsteen on the River Tour a couple of years ago. I was like, that's what I want to do. So that way, if somebody walks out and he's like, he didn't play Spirit in the Night, you're like, dude, it's the river. Like, you know what you're getting. Like, a couple of years from now, I will do, I'll go out on another tour, and that'll be a collection of stories, in any assorted, random manner. But this one, I thought, it's 20 years. This is the match I get asked about all the time. It's got a great story arc to it. There's lessons learned, and there's body parts missing. And so there's like a great action adventure evening.
Well, I know that you get asked about it all the time, so I'm not going to ask you about that match particularly. I'll save it for the show on May 2nd at the Spokane Comedy Club. But what I did want to ask, though, is, you versus Shayne McMahon, Hell in a Cell. Who wins in that one?
Well, oh, man. Shayne's certainly braver than I am. I mean, Shayne. See, the difference between me and Shayne is that I went up there, I lied and said I had been up there in the middle of the day, and was comfortable with the cell. And the truth is, if I had gone up there in the middle of the day, I would have never gone up there at night because I was scared to death. It was the worst decision I ever made. If I could have found a way to climb down without destroying my career, I would have done it. Whereas Shayne went up there and he's like, oh, yeah, that's what I want, but I want it 4 feet larger. So Shayne dropped an elbow actually 4 feet higher than the cell that I was in. So, and he's a guy in his 40s. He's got a wife. He's got children. Conceivably, he's a McMahon. He's got all the money he can want. He just tests those boundaries.
Yeah, I think it would be certainly something, a WrestleMania moment to remember you two. But we'll see what the future brings us. One thing I wanted to ask is if anyone's ever referred to you as the Thomas Edison of wrestling, because your whole beginning of your career. I mean, Thomas Edison, how many times did it take him to finally get the light bulb right? And when asked about it, he's like, I'm not failing. I'm finding out all these ways you don't make a light bulb. I mean, that was kind of your career in the early ons. You went from one brand to another with different gimmicks until finally you found your fit.
Yeah. I would argue that that Cactus Jack would have been just fine in WWE. Mr. McMahon revealed to me like 15 years after the fact, did not think I looked like a star. And therefore, the whole premise of the Mankind mask was his concession that he would hire me, but only if he could cover up my face. So and then we made that, that character work anyway. And then Mr. McMahon being a great businessman, he realized, there was a market for the character I'd been before, and also the character I'd always dreamed of being, which was Dude Love. And he not only let me portray all three, but it allowed me to do it simultaneously, in one case, all in the same match.
Looking back, is there anything that you would do any differently at all? Because you've been part of so many great moments. There was the JR infamous call with God is my witness, he is broken in half, the title change on Monday Night Raw during the Monday Night Wars. I mean, you in your career are pivotal moments in some of WWE's great history.
Yeah, so you do wonder sometimes, like, all right, why was I dropping elbows off of ring aprons in front of 100 people, and Sheboygan, and these are things that cause major structural damage. And in the past year, I had my right hip and my right knee replaced, and it wasn't like it was a big surprise. Like every old timer that ever walked me was like, "Yeah, you're going to be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40." But I'm 52, and I'm moving better than I have in a few years, and a number of years. But certainly, I wonder why I did some of the things I did, in front of such small crowds and meaningless shows. But if I hadn't approached every match like it was the most important match of my life, I don't think I ever would have gotten that call from WWE, even if it was just to cover up my face.
Yeah, it's very inspiring to me, and a lot of people want to be Mick Foley, where they can show up in a flannel shirt and be everybody's favorite. But it's like, he didn't start out that way. He definitely had to earn that place as everybody's kind of favorite badass, the king of hardcore. So I definitely appreciate your career and what you did for the world of wrestling as we know it. One topic I know I wanted to bring up because you're a big fan of it is the women's division, particularly the women's revolution. We had Charlotte end the streak at Mania and Rousey make her debut. What have you thought about witnessing all of this over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You know, a lot of people say, like, they try to give me some credit, and I'm like, I was just somebody like pointing something out, like, look at this, look at that. I certainly wasn't the first person to see it. You know, my son was watching NXT, and I was seeing that what the women were doing there was different and better. And then I saw Charlotte and Natalya just tear the house down. And I spent about 4 or 5 hours writing an article called New Dawn for the Divas. And I was basically saying, like, now that we know what's possible, like, we shouldn't be accepting anything less. Like, the next time you put the women in a lumberjill match or something like that, an evening gown match, it's an insult to them. And so, you know, Triple H pushed hard, Stephanie pushed hard, you know, Mr. McMahon gave it a shot. And now personally, I enjoyed the mixed tag team the most with Ronda and Kurt against Triple H and Stephanie. That was my favorite match, followed by Asuka and Charlotte. So I thought it was a great night for women's wrestling.
Yeah, it certainly was. I enjoyed it. I knew that the Charlotte-Asuka match was going to be a great one. I did think it was going to come out differently, but I think Asuka's story now that she doesn't have the streak will be one that we'll remember, you know, how it gets told as far as in the ring and beyond. But Charlotte has been very pivotal for that. There's been a lot of argument, though, lately, especially on social media, if you had to pinpoint a spot or an individual of what started the women's revolution, where would it be? And my response was, I think you honestly got to give it to Trish and Lita, because although the revolution didn't happen, they almost planted the seed. The Attitude Era, it was so gimmicky with the women being kind of sex symbols, but yet they proved that you could be sexy and incredibly talented in the ring and steal the show. Like, where do you pinpoint who's really responsible for kickstarting the women's?
I think that's as good a point as any. I remember watching the pay-per-view, and it was a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and I believe it was Trish's last match, and the women, they just really stole it. And then the Cell match couldn't follow it. And I was saying out loud, like, they can't follow it. They can't follow the women. And so the women have proven over and over that given the chance, they'll, you know, they can headline Raws. They can headline pay-per-views. And, yeah, they just, it's been a great couple of years for them.
Now, is there, a friend of mine actually texted in a question when he found out I was going to be speaking with you. He's a huge wrestling fan, one of my best friends. He wanted to know if with the introduction of Ronda Rousey to the division, what does that bring to the women's division, and are we seeing what would be the equivalent to the Attitude Era for women?
That could be. It's an excellent point. I wrote an article about 2 weeks before WrestleMania saying this one will be good. As I knew it would, because you got a bunch of perfectionists in there, you know, Kurt, you know, to the point where it's probably not healthy how much of a perfectionist Kurt is. And I knew Stephanie was as, you know, took as much pride in everything she did. Like, there's no way she was going to get in there unless she was fully ready. Triple H, one of the best ever. And I was like, Ronda's going to do it. It surprised me how good it was. Like, I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it would be that good. So what she's done is put a lot more eyeballs on the product, you know, opened it up to mainstream media. And I think, you know, looking through the headlines, it's like Rousey, you know, everyone was really positive about it. Like, you could tell she was the farthest thing from phoning it in. Like, she was fully invested, and it showed.
Well, I will admit I was concerned for Ronda coming in. I knew that she was very passionate about the business. She was willing to put in the work and the time, which I appreciate from her. But, you know, when Brock Lesnar came back from his time at UFC, sure, he started in wrestling, but he came back, and in that first encounter with Cena, you know, it was like a switch that he was having a hard time turning off, you know, the not following through with actually, you know, punching a guy and ripping him apart. So is there any concern that you have in your mind about more of this MMA crossover that we're seeing now in WWE when it comes to that?
Well, not a concern in a negative way. I hope it opens up the door for more women. And Ronda's friend Shayna Baszler is now the NXT champion, and you know, she wears her hair back the way the women in UFC do, and you know, as does Ronda. I mean, that's a cool, authentic look. And I say, you know, it just brings authenticity to the product.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, once everything gets sort of hammered out, we're moving in the right direction for you. I guess we'll kind of end on this note, is that when you look at WWE from more of a fan perspective and see what they've done the last few years and what the future could hold, what do you think needs to be done from a creative standpoint to really, lock in the future of what we're seeing now?
Well, I got one thing, and I am a big fan of the product. But I think I've been asked about this on my shows, and I should point out there's we have a 45-minute Q&A following the 20 years of hell portion, which is going really well, by the way. And and I've been around long enough, so if I get a boring question, I'll turn it into an interesting question. I watch enough politicians on talk shows pivot from the question they were asked so they can give the answer they wanted to all along anyway. But I've been saying, one thing we had in the Attitude Era that the guys of today and the women don't have is that ability to fail on a grand level without being punished for it. It's only with those great failures that you can really succeed. And that's, I think sometimes they play it too safe when it comes to promos, especially. Sometimes, the greatest home runs follow the greatest swings and misses. I don't think the guys are allowed to swing and miss enough. And if I was in charge, I'd just say, go out there and take your swings, and it doesn't matter if you connect every time.
Well, what's next for Mick Foley? What does the future hold?
Well, I love doing these shows. This is I'll be away most of May. I've been away quite a bit this month, most of May. I love it. I can't even remember the last time I was in Spokane. And I've always got something going on. I'm never at a loss. There's never a day where I wonder how I can fill the day. There's always something to do. And there'll be a new adventure around the horizon. That'll be a new adventure for me today, I'm sure.
Excellent. Well, it is May 2nd at the Spokane Comedy Club, but it is not comedy. It is the 20th anniversary of Hell in a Cell. We will relive that night, and Mick will do a Q&A after, but it should be a fantastic time. Really looking forward to it, Mick, and I can't wait to see you in Spokane, and I can't thank you enough for your time today.
All right, thank you for your time. We'll see you there.
Yeah, safe travels, Mick. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
And once again, that was the legend that is Mick Foley. Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love. That's right, that was that man. And Mick, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do a little segment on the show. He is now officially added to the list of fantastic guests that I've had right here on the Fan Show, the show made for the fans by a fan. I ask the questions you want because I have the opportunity to. But man, what a great time. That's how we're going to end our week. We're going to put a nice pretty little plaid bow on this thing and throw a mask on it, and we're going to call it Thursday. We'll be back next week. Looks like there is a new permanent start time until further notice for the Fan Show, and that will be 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. So we're finding a happy medium. I've been going through training at this new job, and I haven't been out until about 4:15, so I get home at 5 my time. That's just in time to do the show for an hour, 5 to 6, but I want to stay away from that time just because there's so much that happens at 5. I don't want to get too far into it, like when the primetime games start and whatnot and everything else. So 4:30 to 5:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that is starting next week on the Fan Show. You can follow us on Twitter at FanShowOfficial, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/FanShowOfficial. Follow along the Instagram, the Snapchat, both are the Fan Show. Your home base for all things football and nonsense is thefanshow.com. Subscribe to the podcast and all of its favorite forms and flavors, iTunes, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. Catch replays on WBLZ Sports. And you can listen live on thefanshow.com or Spreaker.com, which is where we broadcast to you live 3 nights a week from within the comfy confines of the Fan Cave studio. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Shayne Merriman of Wrestlaholic and Mick Foley of Mick Foley, because he's that awesome. We'll be back with a whole new slate of brand new episodes next week as we get closer to BattleBots oh so exciting. It's robot fighting time. You can look forward to hearing from Farouk probably the day before that on the episode. And then we've got so much great content coming for you. Such great content! And I'm going to continue with my Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. So, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Friday, and then, of course, the rest of the weekend that follows. Best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners! Hopefully they're doing great in the draft right now. And remember, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks!
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.